I'm gonna be the world's greatest Pokémon master someday. I'm not gonna let this scare me. And, as Doctor Procter said, to a doctor, a patient is a patient. No such thing as good guys and bad guys. A doctor's job is to heal, not judge. And as a doctor, my first order of business is to write you a prescription to listen to the podcast. Hey, I'm Veronica Taylor.
And I'm Rena Taylor.
And this is The Trainer's Guide.
Today's episode,
A Chansey Operation. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We're at episode 44.
Woohoo!
We are back in LA, finally.
Yeah, we're back together.
We've been traveling.
I can see you now.
I know. We've been traveling
exciting.
for so long. Our journey has been crazy. You have gotten back from your wonderful painting
excursion.
Excursion, yes.
Yeah.
And I just returned from, I guess, a tour of sorts in Ireland and Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands with Rotterdam Comics. It was really fun and crazy and so great to see so many of you out on the road. Anyway, I'm happy to be back.
I know, I'm jealous I couldn't be there, but I'm very excited, happy to see all the photos. It looks super fun.
It was amazing and crazy. Also, last night as I was flying home from New York, the light from the World Trade Center is up, as it is every year for the past 23 years. That was shining out, and it was a twilight, so it wasn't the brightest it could possibly be as we flew over, but it was a chance. I even talked to the pilot actually when I got off the plane and said, thank you for flying that close to it. Obviously not so close, but the fact that we were able to see it out the window when we don't ever take that that pathway was extraordinary, and I was on the correct side of the plane to be seeing it. It was very moving and very powerful. I mean, I think we all remember where we were on September 11th. And I don't know, I think it's a good opportunity for all of us to stop for a minute and just think back on that time and think forward. There's been so much death since then, for so many reasons, COVID not the least among them. But with all of these wars ongoing right now, Ukraine and Gaza, so many people. So we all have suffered through so many losses. And I think this is a moment to think about it and be happy that we are at least together.
Yeah.
Grateful for what we do have and how we can all come together and support one another. And I think ultimately work toward peace.
That's true. And I think this episode, too, is all about doctors and being in the medical field and the emergency response field as a firefighter or as a doctor, an EMT. That is so important. And so I think this is a great, it's a chance thing that we're recording this episode around this time, but I think it's really important to highlight all the people in
health services.
Yeah,
and how
seriously.
doctors answer the call, firefighters answer the call. And
all of these, horrific events, they are the first responders.
That's
and
right.
I think that that's super important to celebrate all the time.
Perhaps we can also say that it is definitely, one never knows fully what one is capable of until it is asked.
That's right.
And you have to step up. And in this episode, our trio does step up.
That's right.
And it starts with Pikachu rummaging around in an apple tree.
I guess a bush.
Apple
tree. Yeah, it's an apple tree. And it chokes on this apple, we find out.
Well, yeah, I think too an interesting thing is that something is, quote, stuck in Pikachu's throat and it loses its voice.
Yeah.
Which is another a powerful metaphor for how all of us need to realize we do have a voice.
Right.
And we do need to speak up. And it's quite powerful being able to use it. Pikachu is somewhat useless when its voice is gone. It's
it's not
wattage
able
is
to
low.
do that much. It's very ill all of a sudden.
Yes.
And so Ash, Misty, and Brock run to take it to the nearest Pokemon Center.
But there is no Pokemon Center around.
And I think the nearest one is closed or something, it said, or something like that.
Yes.
Anyway, so they go to a hospital, which we've not been to.
No, and it's an actual hospital
yes, it's for humans. And we meet this man, this doctor man, which we find out his name is Doctor Procter. And he is kind of a weird guy.
He's very soap opera, I thought.
Yes,
he's very
true.
kind of quintessentially handsome and rugged, and I guess good at what he does. But he seems to not really want to work.
No, I think it's interesting too. Like Pikachu chokes on the apple, and then Ash is asleep and has to be woken up to then take Pikachu to the hospital. And then the doctor opens the door and is like, "Oh, I was just falling asleep." And so I was like, "What's going on with all this sleeping in this
Everyone's
episode?
napping.
Everybody's tired." Anyway, and so then basically he gets convinced to help Pikachu because Misty asks nicely. And he's like, "Oh, I can't." What does he say? First he goes, "I can't turn down a pretty face." Which you go, okay. And then later when he finds out that it's not Misty who wants help, it's Pikachu.
Right, because he thinks Misty has come in for some emergency.
Checkup or something. And then when he finds out it's Pikachu and she's like, "Please, doctor, help us try, whatever." And then he's like, "Oh, I can't refuse requests from young girls." Creepy.
Which I think is, I really looked at it as the other side of, I might say no to a normal person, but you're so young and cute and okay, little girl, I'll help you, whatever. Yeah. I took it that way, but you could take it both ways.
Well, they seem to take it my way because then Misty's like, "Brock, or she turns to Brock and she goes, "The doctor's not the only one who has a soft spot for a pretty face." And Brock is like, "Oh, that's me."
He's so embarrassed.
He's embarrassed.
And yet he doesn't change.
He gets a taste of his own medicine in this episode.
Medicine?
Because he can really see what he looks like from the outside.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Because Dr. Procter is quite the flirt.
He is,
He's a flirty guy.
And that's why I think his voice is very low and wonderful, and he's very
and it's
doctory.
Funny when he's flirting with the other people because it's a little more appropriate.
It's so, that's why I think it's a soap opera take.
I'm sure it is.
But
it was just funny.
It's weird.
That line, I was like, whoa, maybe we could have changed that. It's just that line made me kind of go
cringe.
A little creepy.
Yeah.
But,
okay, so as we pull away from that, Dr. Procter decides that he needs the defibrillator to shock Pikachu because it's just like when you have to check your car battery, you put those little points on there and you can see how high the voltage is. He does that to Pikachu's cheeks.
Yeah, I know.
And finds out it's very low. And it needs 10,000 volts of electricity. So he shocks Pikachu, who kind of wakes back up.
Right.
And then he's able to put his hand down Pikachu's throat.
to grab the apple.
Yeah, they all get electrocuted.
Get shocked. Yeah, but the apple's fresh.
Fine.
Yeah.
And he pulls it out. You know what? If electricity, could that cook the apple? Could they have eaten it?
Well, I was wondering if it was going to be like mushy, but it wasn't. It was very solid. So
yeah,
I don't
somehow.
know. I'm not sure, but I thought it might be kind of like a baked apple or something. But
at the end, that reminds me, it's getting to be fall here in the U.S. We could start baking apples.
Doesn't feel like fall in Southern California.
It's been so hot here.
So hot.
I think we've gotten a break from that. As another side note, I did also, flying last night, I passed by the line fire in San Bernardino that's burning in the mountains, and it is extraordinary and extreme. The heat is exacerbating everything, and as we all know, the fires just burn hotter now.
Yeah, I know.
And meanwhile, there are more storms around because the ocean water is so hot. So we've got a lot of things going on. Anyway, I'll post a picture of that because the fire is just, you don't really think about it if you're not there.
Well, it's also crazy seeing it from above.
It was shocking.
I think last fire season had a couple times flying over some fires, and it's really just
horrifying.
Yeah, it's crazy because you just don't think about it, you know, in that same way. You see pictures and whatever, but once you see it,
yeah,
you know, it's just horrible. I can't imagine being in there, you know, and experiencing it.
No, me neither.
On the ground. It's enough to just see it from the air, which is frightening.
So I'll share pictures with that. But okay, but back to this episode. My favorite part is this, when the phone is going, ring, 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 phone call,
yeah.
ring, 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 phone call.
That we should do for a
I would love
ringtone.
It.
That
it's
would be
so
good.
Great. And so the doctor, of course, is wandering off because he's on a break.
Yeah.
So
Again, he's
off
like,
duty.
okay, I'm off duty now. And they're like, what if it's an emergency? And he's like, well, I'm off duty. I need a break.
Right.
So anyway, he's definitely a very, and he's like the only doctor in the hospital.
Exactly. I think it's the night shift, so
I'm sure.
They're not expecting anyone.
Which is kind of weird because it's bright outside when they go in. But anyway, so it's Nurse Joy, and there's been a traffic accident on the road.
Yes.
And all these Pokemon are injured. And I'm pretty sure it's Team Rocket's fault.
It is, because Jessie says, this is your fault, James, for not paying attention.
Yeah.
And James says, I thought Meowth was paying attention.
Yeah, I know. They're just not
with it.
This episode is not great
teens.
for them. I know.
They can't drive.
Are they young teens?
Yes.
Are they really?
Of course they are.
I feel like they could be in their early 20s.
They're ageless, timeless.
That's true. It doesn't really matter.
The point is they shouldn't be driving and they should be concentrating. So they've caused a giant accident.
There's a huge traffic accident.
And Meowth has lost its charm.
I know. I lost my charm.
On his head. Its head. I don't know.
I think Meowth is a boy.
So we'll say his. So that which I didn't know was a charm has fallen off.
Yeah.
And all he can do is whine about it, which perhaps the charm is a balancing mood enhancer of something.
I think
because he's lost it.
He cannot think of anything else or do anything else other than cry about his charm.
I know.
And I thought it was funny because, like, you know, Meowth has kind of this New Yorkie accent or whatever. And so, but he's like, I lost my charm. Like, the way he says charm is so funny to me. The whole episode is charm. I lost my charm.
I thought he was saying in the beginning, I had to go back because I thought he was saying, I lost my job. I was like, what is your job?
That too.
Then, so I didn't understand it till the charm came back on his head.
Oh my God, that's the end of the episode. You had no idea? Oh my God, that's so funny.
It's embarrassing.
That's at the end of, that's the last scene, the last frame of the episode.
I know, but the point
Spoiler alert,
is that
comes back.
I don't think I've ever actually seen this episode really back.
Yeah.
And Ash had no lines with Meowth during that, so I had no idea.
You would have no idea about the charm. The charm isn't part of your thing.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, so
also, that's all Meowth says in this episode. Can you imagine recording that?
No.
My charm.
And whining and crying and all the tears spurting out of its head.
Maybe that would be fun, though. I don't know. Anyway, so Meowth has lost its charm. All the Pokemon are injured, and Nurse Joy convinces Doctor Procter to let the Pokemon come in and get treated.
Yes, and then
he's like, hey, Nurse Joy, after, maybe would you like to grab a pizza? This is his line.
I'll think about it after we figure this out.
She's like, don't talk to me right now.
It's hilarious.
Anyway, so then they're like, oh, Brock goes, I don't like that guy, right? Because he's too much like me.
He's on the make.
I know.
Yeah. But
anyway,
luckily he has all these extra doctor outfits.
He's got lab coats.
So, and Misty has to be in a Nurse Joy type outfit.
I know.
And then the guys get long, I would say Professor Oak kind of lab coats.
Yeah. So they have to help because nobody else they're very understaffed at the hospital.
There's only Chansey there.
Well, Chansey.
A couple Chansey.
Is with Nurse Joy.
But the Chansey come to the hospital.
Yeah.
And this is a great show for Chansey.
Yeah. I thought Chansey was going to have a bigger role. I guess it does kind of.
It does. It is assisting in everything.
No,
with
I know.
those tiny little arms.
But it's called a Chansey Operation. And I just thought that, I don't know, I thought something was going to happen with Chansey. I don't know. It's just all around.
It's also a play on the fact that could anything be saved?
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah. I just thought it was going to be more of like Chansey's going to have to be in the operating room doing stuff. And
this is...
If it's only Chansey, I don't know. I just thought it was going to be a bigger
I think this shows you that you have to approach Pokemon in the moment. You can have no ideas about what's going to happen because it always surprises you. It never works out.
It surprises you in ways you never expected to be surprised. That's for sure.
That's it. Like, for instance, here, Cubone comes in.
Oh, yeah.
And Ash has to get Bulbasaur to hold it down with the Vine Whip because it's just crazy and crying. And the doctor says, oh, it'll be okay. Just get the super glue and glue its head back together.
Super glue is Doctor Procter's specialty.
Mm-hmm.
Every single Pokemon that gets treated is super glued.
Rat-a-tat.
Seriously.
They said, just glue the teeth back on.
Super glue the teeth. There's like that brown thing with the pincher.
It might be Heracross or something.
Maybe. I don't know. But it also gets super glued.
Yes.
Brock and James are working together. So basically, so Jessie and James are in the hospital, and Arbok and the Raticate are kind of facing off. And so the doctor comes over, prescribes super glue for the Raticate, and then Jessie's like, please help Arbok because it's all tangled up and its venom is circulating through its body.
Yeah, because its neck is tied in a knot.
Yeah.
Actually, and he's like, this is a knotty situation.
Oh, does he say that?
Yeah.
Of course he does. Anyway, so
he mumbles
it's dangerous.
a lot under his breath. Dr. Procter, I should have been a lawyer.
Yeah, I know.
Or I'm not prepared for this. It's really funny. And he, of course, the doctor asks Jessie out for a pizza.
Which I was like so glad because Jessie's always talking about her looks. And so finally somebody else
appreciates her.
And
he said anything for a beautiful woman. And she's like, you must mean me.
I know. I'd love to. So then he's like, you want to get a pizza? And she's like, we can discuss more of this over pepperoni.
Yeah.
But now help Arbok, right? And then he's like, okay, this is going to take me a long time. So maybe like this gorgeous girl can help with the other Pokemon. So Jessie's like, okay, I will. And James is like, me too, which I love because he's like also in on this being seen as beautiful or like just taking the compliment, even if it wasn't meant for him, which I love. So they also get roped into helping
everyone.
Things. Also, one of my favorite lines is when they're in the hospital and Ash is there and they're like, oh, the twerp is here. And then James goes, and the twerp is an MD?
Yeah, I know.
I just love it.
With the doctor's outfits. Everyone totally buys into the costumes.
Yeah,
which is beautiful.
Yeah, it really is great.
Also, in this part, Ash is like, why are you helping them? They caused this. They're bad, whatever.
Yeah.
And the doctor, to quote the line in the opening, Dr. Procter says, to a doctor, a patient is a patient. Mm-hmm. No such thing as good guys and bad guys. A doctor's job is to heal, not judge.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great message for this whole episode, that everybody pitches in and just helps out, regardless of who they are healing and why they were in the accident or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think, too, this is a great episode for Ash because it really shows that not that he hasn't learned that much, but that he has so much more to learn.
Yeah.
Because every single thing that he does in this episode, he is kind of like brought down to earth a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so he tries to hold the Cubone down with Bulbasaur. Right. And the doctor says, you have to be more careful.
Be more gentle.
You have to be gentle. This Cubone's just a baby, you know, right? All this kind of stuff. And Ash is like, oh, okay. And then he doesn't want Team Rocket to get help because they're bad.
Right.
And the doctor says, that's just not how this works.
That go.
And he's like, oh, okay. And every single time he kind of tries to do something brazenly, he gets
kind of knocked down a peg in a sense.
Yeah, but like
schooled.
In that, he has a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just goes to show that even though he has grown a lot since the beginning of the season, he still has a very far way to go.
And even with that, when he says, I'm going to be a Pokemon master someday, so I'm going to just screw my courage to the sticking place.
Right.
And then I'm just going to get in there and do this. I don't know how to heal. What we see through Misty, that the kindness and just really being in the moment and listening with how she cuddles up to Cubone and settles it, all of that. And she's really quite good with all of the Pokemon.
Yeah,
naturally.
She definitely has a knack, and Ash does not, which I think
he more
he's upset about.
Stumbles into it all and is with bluster.
Yes, yeah.
But that's not the way to heal.
No.
We find.
Yeah, exactly.
We all probably know that already.
That's true. But yeah, so superglue is a main tool in this doctor's arsenal. Everyone gets superglued, except for Arbok, I think. Or like things that
he gets
are tied
the syringe
in knots.
And then the knot loosens and it's fine.
Yeah, so he's got anesthesia and superglue.
That's
is his MO. And basically it all comes to a boiling point when we see Dodrio.
Yeah, except I thought it was Dodrio. But everyone's going Dodrio. But anyway.
Dodrio.
Well, the point is...
We see that one. And all three of its heads are tied together. And they're all angry. And basically, if they don't untie them soon, they're going to suffocate.
Yeah.
And it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
And also this episode, too, there's a lot of like talking about death, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
Like they don't normally talk about that.
And also with this accident, they were all injured in these odd ways.
Yeah.
Like getting tied in knots.
Yeah.
Which is a metaphor for all of us kind of not relaxing and kind of getting through something. You get tied in knots and you can't get yourself out of it.
Right.
You're so, with Dodrio, the three heads represent joy, sorrow, and anger.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting. I think we all have more than that in us.
Yeah.
Empathy is the way to heal.
Yeah.
We have found through this. So maybe the body's empathy. So anyway, with this, Doctor Procter is going to use the anesthetic to to kind of calm Dodrio down.
Right, to then untie it because it's being very feisty. But it attacks the doctor.
Yeah.
And the anesthesia actually goes into the doctor's arm instead.
Yes.
And so he falls asleep for 6 hours.
6 hours. While they work tirelessly through the night healing the Pokemon.
So he's like, I'm going to sleep. You guys have to do this for me. And so then, he goes to bed and Chansey, Ash, and Brock have to kind of figure out what to do. And so Ash decides to use his method of healing. And he uses his Pokemon to weaken the Dodrio.
Right.
So he uses what he knows, which are his Pokemon skills, and he basically knocks it out. And then he almost tries to catch it. But Brock
Dodrio,
reminds him that, you can't do that.
That's not why we're here.
I know, exactly. So wise. And so then they untie the knots.
There is
a turning point.
Right before this, James and Brock are healing what we think is the Heracross together, and Jessie and Misty are getting the Voltorb that is stuck in Weeping Bell's mouth.
Weeping Bell.
But it's interesting that they have scenes by themselves.
I know. It was so funny.
I love that.
I did too.
But then, of course, Team Rocket decides they've had enough of being nice. They bust out of their hospital garb into their full Team Rocket mode. And they pull out this stretcher catcher.
I know.
That they have concocted.
They've been working on while everyone else is healing the Pokemon.
Exactly.
They're working on, evil plans. So, it's just, they're consistent.
Right.
Which is good.
They have
consistency is key.
These stretchers with these kind of metallic arms with
kind
hands
of like
on the
Mickey
end.
Mouse arms.
Yeah, and Doc Ock from Spider-Man.
That's true. Yeah.
But they throw the stretcher.
Yeah, the stretchers capture Ash, Misty, Brock, Pikachu, and they can't get up. And anyway, so they're about to fight. They're about to go in and capture all the Pokemon, but Chansey gets in the way. Chansey steps in front of them.
Yes.
And they're like, what are you doing here? It doesn't matter. And so they send Arbok and Weezing in to battle Chansey.
Right.
And they won't do it.
They refuse to help because they were healed by Chansey.
Yep.
And they won't turn on it.
No. Which is pretty amazing.
I think so, too.
It is very, I think it's cool to see Pokemon having, we all know that they have minds of their own, but I think it's really cool to see them taking a stand for something.
Right.
Because you think once you are captured and once you're part of a team, then you just follow out the orders of your trainer. And it's really cool to see them having some autonomy and like decision, having part, like they only will do it if they want to.
Because a lot of Pokemon is about the battling.
Yeah.
And here you see them actually caring for one another.
Yeah.
In many ways,
really cool.
actually. Yeah, I do too.
I really like that. So Chansey blocks the way. They won't fight Chansey. And then the doctor comes in.
Yes.
You know, he's back,
woken up.
Swashbuckling. Jesse throws like a bottle of something at him and he slices it with a
He's
scalpel.
got ninja moves.
I know.
Yes.
Where were these? I think maybe he just needed a good sleep.
We often all do.
Yeah. He seems to wake really up after this nap. And then basically they untie them from the stretchers and then the stretchers go after Jesse James Meowth.
Right.
And they like run through
the wall. Yeah.
It's very funny. Very cartoon, you know. And then James has gotten the Voltorb.
Yes.
And it self-destructs.
It blows up.
And so they blow up and they land in another area. And this is what we said before. Meowth's charm
pops back on its head.
Out.
Yeah.
Which I think is so interesting because we have this whole scene where Chansey's trying to put stuff on Meowth's forehead.
Right.
As like a replacement charm.
Yeah.
But we get like a bowl of rice. We get the police station.
But they're all, he says they're all, other misunderstood words for it.
Yeah, because he says something and then Chansey puts like, what is that? What it sounds like.
Yes, exactly.
Something that sounds similar.
I think we need more sleep.
I know, seriously.
Also, I love that Doctor Procter has on the inside of his coat, he opens his coat and shows his syringes. And I think he has a bunch of those things that you use to tap your knee for your reflexes.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what that's called at the moment. But yes.
Knee tappers, I'm calling them.
Oh, yeah, knee tapper.
Syringes, scissors, and knee tappers.
Totally. He's got a lot in that lab coat.
Yeah. I wonder if he's selling anything.
Probably.
Watches.
Probably.
I
would not be surprised.
No.
Because he's got a lot going on.
He does. And then he says, you kids would make great doctors.
Yeah.
Which he's probably right, except they have the presence of mind to say, no, I'm following my dreams.
Right.
Ash says, I want to be a Pokemon master. Brock says, I want to be a Pokemon breeder.
Yeah.
And Misty says, you know what, actually, I might consider this.
I know.
But I need to learn more about water Pokemon.
Yeah.
She's so specific.
I know. I was like, what about the other ones? But maybe she would be a water Pokemon specialist doctor.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, babies in the stomach of humans are in water. And
so are you saying all Pokemon start off being in water?
They could be. Or also humans are made up of 90% water or whatever.
True.
And so her being learning more about water Pokemon, ultimately she could be learning more about life in general.
That's true.
Maybe she's so deep.
That is really a stretch.
Stretcher catcher. I think one of the great lessons that the narrator tells us is helping others is its own reward.
Yes, and this got me thinking about Gary. I thought about Gary at the end of this.
You did?
Yes.
Interesting.
He's always on my mind. But I really thought about it. I think we've talked about this before. Like, Gary definitely has an easier path. It seems like he kind of wins a lot and is going through this journey incredibly fast.
Yes.
He's very quick and he's in and out, all this kind of stuff. But Ash and Misty and Brock by association are met with difficulties or a trial every single day.
Right.
They're always up against something. Nothing goes right. And instead of just being like, oh, forget this and continuing on, they solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And this is like, the thing is, there's so much, they have learned and gained so much more from their journey than he has.
Right.
That we know of. I mean, we don't know what he's doing really in his convertible, but like,
right.
But he has so many, I'm not entirely sure, but he's been given so many other opportunities, and it just seems everything seems to come easy for him. But I would be willing to bet that he would not have, the fortitude to deal with things or have respond in this crisis like Ash, Misty, and Brock are able to.
Such a good point, because the easy path is not the best.
Yeah.
We all learn from our mistakes and our failures.
Right.
And we would not be the people we are without the struggle.
Yeah. And so, even though they're not getting a badge every single episode,
right,
they're learning so many valuable lessons. I mean, that's why we have this podcast. But it really goes to show, regardless of, if you're having a good time, a bad day, all this kind of stuff, you can always learn and always grow.
That's right.
From your situations. And sometimes it's a lot harder than others. That's for sure.
But that it's through the struggle and the working together that we grow and become better humans.
Yeah.
I do think there's a difference between regret for not doing something and struggling through and maybe wishing it hadn't been so hard.
Yeah.
But
or being able to then come out on the other side and be proud of what you did, even if it was not the easiest decision to make.
And also, I think so often the struggle that you may have turns into a way of enabling you to help someone else through their struggle.
Right.
So ultimately, it's worth it on
and it's that
many
whole,
levels.
Yeah, it's a whole thing of having experiences because only by experiencing things can you then empathize with others.
That's right.
Because you can then look back into your own life and your own lived experience and go, oh, something like that happened to me too.
Right.
And it allows you to empathize and put yourself in others' shoes more easily.
Which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
I think
anyway, I thought it was
our
really interesting.
struggle with being in 100-degree heat and no air conditioning and having it be 92 to 95 in our apartment, this struggle has helped us to be better people. Somehow.
We've
been schwitzing here.
I've not come out on the other side quite yet, but I'm excited to see how this shapes me for sure. I'm ready to see.
I'm really ready too.
I'm ready to be on the other side of this.
I think it's getting cooler today, but we'll just go back to the library.
Yeah.
For our free air conditioning.
Somebody send cool air to California, please.
Oh my gosh. For this, before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you also to everyone for sending their thoughts about Rachel, and it's been really wonderful. This is, it's just been over a month now since she passed away, and I can't say it's getting any easier, but it's certainly, we are getting through because of all of us banding together. So thank you all for sharing and sharing the joys about her. I also want to say, especially with September 11th, that we are thinking of everyone who has suffered losses across the board, as we mentioned in the beginning. But once again, to say that we truly are all in this together, and you always have someone to turn to, even if it is just emailing us or sending us a message on social media. So to all of you, I do wish the very, very best today and every day. So I think this is a good time for the Poke Wrap Up,
where we hear from you, the Pokemon community.
We asked you to send in your Pokemon stories, memories, and inspirations.
And here is one of this week's.
Karine from Canada in the province of Quebec has written, I watched the whole first season in French and then later on in English. Well, that's how I learned English. I just discovered your podcast and I feel like a happy child again. What a beautiful duet you two make. Pokemon meant absolutely everything to me as a child. My childhood was a happy time because of you, basically. Pokemon is all about real friendship and life lessons. First season will always be the best, along with the first movie. Thank you for making me happy. Merci beaucoup, Karine. And thank all of you for sending in your stories to us. And please, we do want to hear from all of you.
You can email us a short recording or write to us at trainersguidepod@gmail.com.
And try to keep it short, maybe 30 seconds or so. We don't want to have to edit.
Oh, and please include your first name and where you're from.
Well, that about wraps up today's episode of The Trainer's Guide. And, as they say, to be continued. We hope that you continue to join us on this journey that is The Trainer's Guide.
As you know, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you're listening now.
And if you subscribe, comment, and rate the podcast, it helps others find the show and keeps us on the air.
Thank you so much in advance for your generosity and all of your amazing support.
Trainer's Guide is a production of Boom Integrated.
We are co-executive producing this along with
the amazing Adrienne Glover
and the incomparable Robin Lai. I'm your host, Veronica Taylor.
And I'm your host, Rena Taylor.
And this has been The Trainer's Guide. We'll see you out there on the road.